Today we'll be talking about how childhood trauma affects a child's criminal behavior. What do we know about childhood trauma? Studies report from Focus for Health that between 75 to 93% of youth entering juvenile justice systems annually are estimated to have experienced some degree of victimization. Victimization means the action of singling someone out for cruel or unjust treatment. People who have experienced violence as children are more likely to drop out of high school. 24% of girls and 26% of boys drop out of school because of what they've experienced, which is so heartbreaking because a school setting could be a safe haven for a lot of children from their home lives. As stated by the National Institute of Health, crime level decreases significantly as education level increases. Based on a combined 2009 to 2014 study, about 12.3% of children aged 17 or younger live with at least one parent who has substance use disorder. That's why it's so important for youth to leave that toxic environment for at least a few hours in a day, and hopefully professionals can help the students within that time frame when they are not at home. I can't imagine what life was like for those kids when we could not leave our homes during the pandemic of COVID-19. When we were in lockdown, there were more reports for domestic violence. When you look at the National Center for Education, right before lockdown, during the school year of 2019 to 2020, 77% of public schools recorded that one or more incidents of crime had taken place, which is about 29 incidents per 1,000 students. I certainly believe that these studies of statistics could be slightly off because not all schools would know everything an individual student does. There are just too many kids to know. That comes to another topic I would like to talk about, which is how there are not enough mental health specialists in schools. I know when I was in high school, there was only one mental health professional for over 800 students in that school. I will be honest, she did her job wonderfully. She told kids about a program for students who have parents with substance use disorder, which was called Alateen. Alateen's purpose is to help young people affected by someone else's drinking or substance use. I do wish those types of programs are more talked about than they actually are. I first heard of Alateen at the beginning of my senior year in high school. There's a saying, those people who need help the most are usually the most difficult to help. By the time most people are getting professional help, they've already engaged in very self-destructive behavior. That is why being gentle and understanding is so important with helping the youth and adults really don't know what they have been through. How trauma affects criminal behavior. Kids ages from 4 to 12 are the most impacted by their environment. Over 500,000 children suffer serious injuries. About 1,500 children die. This makes child maltreatment the leading cause of death in children annually. Child maltreatment roughly doubles the possibility that an individual engages in many types of crimes. Child maltreatment roughly doubles the possibility that an individual engages in many types of crimes. An interesting finding is that most criminals have experienced trauma, which is a deeply or disturbing experience. Trauma affects the brain. It can affect how a person would act in some situations, like how it can be harder to trust people, which can deeply impact new and old relationships. A person could become distant and maybe more agitated towards others. When children have a type of trauma like this, kids are less likely to seek help in the future or to be overall not communicative. That would make it hard to be able to have good communication skills when they are older. Trauma can also lead to impulsivity and aggression. A person who has experienced trauma may not be able to distinguish between safe and dangerous situations, which could increase their probability of poor decision making and antisocial behaviors. These behaviors could be linked to criminality. Also, as we looked at the parents, if the parents, one or both, exhibit criminal behavior, there seems to be an increased risk of their children to display criminal behavior themselves. There was a study of 4,000 incarcerated males. The study found a strong relationship between exposure to trauma in childhood and criminal behavior. 44% of the participants were found to have been exposed to physical trauma during childhood. That's an awful high percentage. That would almost be 2,000 males in that incarceration center that had experienced childhood trauma. We should also look at both men and women and how they react to trauma in different ways. When men and women who have experienced the same trauma, researchers noted that affiliations with antisocial behaviors in adulthood increased criminal behaviors in both men and women. However, for some reason, men who have had a romantic partner who was warm and caring decreased in criminal behaviors. For women, it is interesting if they were in a relationship with a person who was warm and caring, it did not decrease their criminal behavior. I can't help but ask the question why. Why is there a decrease with men's criminal behavior but not with women's? With partners who are warm and caring. I personally would imagine that there would be a decrease for both men and women because anybody, well, hopefully, would like a person who is caring and understanding, right? Ultimately, it is unclear why there's a difference between men and women's criminal behavior in that subject. However, women are more likely to have or exhibit internal problems such as depression, social withdrawal, anxiety more often than men during the middle of childhood. Men tend to exhibit aggression, hostility, and delinquency in childhood. Finally, there is a thing called cycle of violence among children who have experienced child maltreatment. This behavior appears when victims of child maltreatment carry out violence when they are older. These now adults commit violence towards their peers or loved ones later in their life cycle. That's why it's called cycle of violence. People with childhood trauma did not commit acts of violence in their youth. Maybe they were too scared when they were younger and now they want to act upon it. Or they now want to feel a type of control that they didn't experience in childhood. Overall, the fact that childhood trauma leads to criminal behavior is still not well understood. There are just some things we still don't know how one leads to another, or how it does not lead to crime. There are people who have experienced awful trauma, however, instead of that trauma leading them to crime, it leads them to helping others. Hopefully, one day we can fully understand and be able to help children the way that they truly need to be helped.